Right. Hey guys, Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the Kuva Quartakk. In this series, I take a weapon and I mod it out and I test it on the weapon on its own merits, meaning I don't mix it with Warframe abilities or things that increase weapon damage. I just test the weapon by itself. So let's get into the build here. So it's the Kuva Quartakk. It's a primary rifle. Now the Kuva Quartakk has two firing modes. It has a mode that is hip fire and automatic, and it has a mode that when you aim down sights, it's a burst fire. So you're either aiming down sights or you're burst firing. Sorry, let me rephrase that. You're either aiming down sights and burst firing, or hip firing and shooting automatic. Hey, Marcellus. So I am going to be using the aim down sight burst fire mode, but I will also show the build for the automatic mode. I feel like the burst fire mode is a lot stronger though. Thanks, math dude. Okay, so we have galvanized chamber here for multi-shot, galvanized scope for crit chance, prime shred for fire rate and a little bit more punch through. Now the burst mode does have innate punch through, like 0.5, so a very small amount. So prime shred helps a little bit more with punch through, and it gives you fire rate too, which is very needed. Serration here for flat damage, and there's another option for this slot as well, and I'll get to that at the end. Critical delay and vital sense for your crit damage crit chance and crit damage mods. Bladed rounds for crit damage. And then primed cryo rounds, and then with the weapon's progenitor. So as some people may know, Kuva weapons and Tenet weapons, you're able to kind of like pick an element that it comes with. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be picking Toxin as the progenitor. And you can kind of just think of like the progenitor sitting in like the 9th mod slot, you know, if you were to ignore the Exilus. It's kind of sitting in the 9th mod slot here. So that would be Toxin. And so we're going to pick up prime cryo rounds to make viral. But it's also important to pick up Toxin because viral is the strongest general element. But in the new Whispers content, viral is very bad. Viral is enemies in Whispers are resistant to viral and straight up immune to it in some cases. And so by having a toxic progenitor, you can switch to corrosive by just putting an electric in this slot instead. And then corrosive is the best general element for Whispers content. So having a toxic progenitor lets you switch between the two best general elements between regular, the regular base game and then the Whispers content. In the Exilus slot, there's nothing really too great here. I'm going to go with Agile Aim just to increase movement speed when aiming. Nothing really too great here. So that's kind of up to you, whatever utility you want to use. And then I'm going to go with Primary Deadhead for large flat damage, 360%, less weapon recoil, and more headshot multiplier. Now, going back over this Serration slot here, the other option instead of Serration would be Galvanized Aptitude. Galvanize, you're going to get more out of Serration on enemies that you kill in about 1 or 2 shots, and you're going to get more out of Galvanized Aptitude on enemies that you kill in like 3+ shots. They're both really good. They just work better in different situations. So for Eximuses and like larger enemies, Galvanized Aptitude will work better than Serration. And then Serration will work all of the time on all enemies, but a little bit less on those Eximuses and above. So that's kind of up to you what you want to do there. Now, this is the aim down sights build here. Now the hip fire build where it's automatic, I'll show you that build, but I do not think it's... this weapon already kind of struggles a little bit, and the hip fire mode just makes it a little bit weaker. But if you were going to do the hip fire mode, you would have to take off your aim down sight kind of mod. So these two right here, galvanized scope and bladed rounds. So you would take off scope bladed rounds, and you would put on aptitude here, and then you would put on the multi-shot mod, vigilante armaments, and that would be the hipfire automatic build. But like I said, it's a lot weaker than the aim down sight mode, but it's up to you. Some people don't like aiming down sight, so this would be the mode for hipfire. Okay, so I'm going to do about 10 minutes in Kuva Survival, Steel Path, just to show the weapon off, kill some trash with it, kill a few acolytes, and then we'll head over to about 10 minutes in Lewis Survival if I can make it that far with this weapon. Now again, like I said with the series, but I don't like to mix Warframe abilities or anything. And so because of that, I'm just going to use an Inaros with no Archon shards. There's no mods or arcanes that increase weapon damage. And I'm not using a companion that has a sentinel weapon, and the companion itself that doesn't have anything on him that increases weapon damage. That way we could just test the weapon itself with no external factors coming into play. So this mode, the aim down sight mode, is going to be mostly a orange crit build, where the hipfire automatic mode is going to be a yellow crit, and actually sometimes you're not going to crit at all, so you're going to be doing, you know, white damage sometimes, but mostly yellow crits. So I casted my 4 there just to double my armor, but that's the last time I'm going to use an ability. Everything else is going to be the weapon. Showing off my horrible aim right now. So as you can see, we're pretty like comfortably into orange crits. You won't be able to get into red crits unless you have a Riven with crit chance on it. If you lose a stack of galvanized scope, you'll see you'll go back down like into a little bit of yellow crits. But as soon as you get a few more headshots, you'll be back into mostly orange, or all orange in some cases. It's important with single target weapons to try to line up your enemies with Prime Shred. That's the only way to really make them competitive with AoE weapons. Now, unfortunately, Prime Shred is a login reward. You can get it somewhat early. I think you can either get it 100 or 200 days in. So, you know, a few months into Warframe, you can get Prime Shred. But it is what makes single target weapons competitive with the AoE meta. Without Prime Shred, you know, you could use any other fire rate mod. It's just that Prime Shred will be a lot better. There is a non-prime version of Shred, but it's not very good. It's only 30% fire rate, which is almost not even worth putting on the weapon. And the punch through, I think, is half as well. So regular Shred versus Prime Shred is kind of like a weird case where if you don't have the Prime version, you probably don't want to use the non-primed because it's just a little bit too weak. My aim's a little bit off this morning. It's This is probably one of the weaker Kuva weapons you can get also, so just keep that in mind. It's not the weakest, but it is one of the weaker Kuva weapons you can get. You know, you can make it strong. Like, of course, you know, these are still Path enemies. I'm one-shotting a lot of them. So, you know, it feels strong. It's just not really going to be competitive with, like, the AoE, not the AoE, but, like, the meta, you know, S-tier meta weapons of the game right now. Alright, we're at 40% life support. I'm probably going to make my way to the first set. Pop like 1 or 2 of them, and then the Acolyte should be coming pretty soon. So I got a few Eximuses here, and I've probably lost a lot of my stacks of scope, so I'm not going to do too much damage. So like in these cases, Galvanized Aptitude would have been like, you know, very strong in these cases. So that's kind of the difference between Serration and Aptitude. Alright, so we have the Acolyte up here. That is not the Acolyte. And not the Acolyte either. Well, the Acolyte is somewhere. He's taking damage. Is that him right there? That is him.
Extraction is ready.
We get a few stacks of scope up, and then we can see how this does against the Acolyte. So when I am getting a hit, you can see it's doing like pretty respectable damage actually to him. It's just the guy's like kind of warping around all over the place. So with this series, I'm trying to go through all of the Steel Path viable weapons in the game. And so if you're watching this, if you have any recommendations of like the next weapon to do, it doesn't have to be a very powerful weapon. It just has to be a weapon that, you know, can kill Steel Path enemies. Sometimes doing the bad weapons is fun as well, just to kind of see how bad they are. I have come across a few weapons in the game, though, that are just absolutely not Steel Path viable. Kuva Hind? Yeah, the Kuva Hind. That's a, it's actually a pretty good Kuva weapon. I like that one a lot. Got my weapon stolen. Where is it? Over there. One of the cool things with the Quartakk is that it has really good ammo economy, so you're just never going to have to worry about your ammo, really. Top 3 weapons to bring into Steel Path. That is probably going to be the Torrid with the Incarnate, the Boar with the Incarnate, and for the third one, there's some good options for the third. The Lex, maybe? The Lex Incarnate? The Lado Incarnate is also really strong. That could also be third, maybe. Definitely the boar and the tor. Those are probably like number 1 and number 2. Number 3 is kind of debatable. Ichor? Oh yeah, for that's a melee weapon, right, Eric? I think it is, if I remember correctly. Yeah. I don't actually have the Ichor built out, so I don't know much about that. So that quite possibly could be, you know, top tier there too. I'm gonna grab some life sports here. Yeah, the Ichor I think also just got an Incarnate mode, which is going to make it like, so if it was meta back in the early days, it's probably going to be even better now with the Incarnate mode. You know, I can't say for sure because I don't have it myself, but Eric said it's pretty decent. Alright, so we're almost at 10 minutes in. We should be getting another Acolyte pretty soon. Now when I do this, usually like pretty average weapons, they hit about 350 to 400 kills. How do Incarnates work exactly? They're basically like super versions of a gun. Actually, I won't even say they're super versions because sometimes they just do something completely different that the gun doesn't do. Alright, so we're 10 minutes in, and we're at 494 kills. Alright, that's actually a little bit above average. I didn't really expect this weapon to be above average, but... Alright, I'll get to extraction, and then I'm going to queue up that Lewis survival.
As you conquer the foe, so you conquer yourself.
So the Incarnate weapons math, dude, you have to unlock the Incarnate adapter on it. That's kind of like a whole process to do that as well. But once you unlock the Incarnate adapter and you put it on the weapon itself, how they work is you get headshots with the normal version. So like let's use the Bursten for example. It's just a 3-shot assault rifle. It's actually not very good, the Bursten. 3-shot assault rifle. But then when you put the Incarnate adapter on it and you know you get your headshots with the regular fire mode, it's going to fill up a bar for the Incarnate mode, and at any point on that bar you can choose to switch over to Incarnate, but if you let it fill you're going to have more of an Incarnate bar to use while you're in that mode. And it turns the Bursten into an automatic like machine gun with explosive pellets. So it turns the weapon like almost completely different. And, you know, actually, now that I'm talking about the Bursten is number 3, probably very comfortably at number 3 in the game. So, yeah, the Bursten is a doo-doo weapon, but the Bursten Incarnate is, like, S tier. So, some of these Incarnate weapons, they make weapons way stronger than they actually were.
Each enemy is more powerful than before. Only with true mastery of the Tenno arsenal
I'm going to hit this.
will you succeed.
I'm going to cast my 4 to double my armor, and that'll be the last time I use a ability.
Stand by for life support.
So in Lua Conjunction, enemies are going to be a little bit stronger. They're going to start at 180 instead of like 130. And they're also going to be mixed enemies. They're not just all going to be Grineers. And all the Incarnates are a little bit different. Latron's really strong too. Yeah. You know, and like talking about them becoming weird stuff. So like the Latron is a single shot, like scout rifle-ish, like a light sniper rifle kind of. But the Incarnate mode makes it into,
If you haven't looked for
I don't even know how to describe it. It shoots out an explosive ball that pings around and bounces around. So like, you know, it's just completely different from what the actual weapon was doing. Sounds like a Borderlands weapon. Yeah, kinda. You know, and some of them are a little bit more mild. Like some of them are kind of somewhat similar to the base mode, just maybe a little bit stronger. Like, you know, I'm thinking of like the Bratton Incarnate or the Soma Incarnate. It's like their Incarnate modes are stronger than their base modes, but they're still basically just a automatic assault rifle or an automatic machine gun with maybe just a little bit more like explosive pellets or something. Got my weapon stolen again there. Okay, we're at 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So the first 5-minute mark of Lua Conjunction, when I do this test with these, you know, using only the weapon I'm bringing, sometimes weapons that are like average-ish will fail at the first 5 minutes, and that's just because you usually get the Thoraxes and the Acolytes spawning at about the same time, and weapons that can't really deal super well with very big guys will sometimes fail. So we'll see how the Quartakk does. I'm not super confident that'll pass it, but I don't think it's not going to pass it either. I guess we'll see. It actually surprised me in the Kuva survival there. It got up to almost 500 kills. And like I said, most of the average weapons I do are like 350 to 400. So it wasn't going as high as some of the weapons I've tested, but, you know, definitely above average. Do variations of weapons have incarnates, like Vandal Wraith and Prisma versions? I believe so. Let me think if there's like a Prisma incarnate. Or like a Wraith incarnate or something like that. I'm going to hit up some life supports here. I think like they could, because they have weapons that aren't primes that have incarnates. I'm just wondering if there's like a... Well, I guess like the Bratton, for example. The Bratton has a bunch of different versions of it. It does have like a Vandal version, and you can put the incarnate on the Vandal version. I'm just trying to think if there's a weapon that like doesn't have a prime version that you would put it on. I could probably check when I go back into the Orbiter. Off the top of my head, I can't really think too much. Okay, so here we go. 5-minute mark. Let's try to get these Thoraxes down. The Thoraxes on Lua Conjunction are going to suck life support. That's why I kind of made sure my life support was topped off before I got into this. And here comes the Acolyte. And it's Malice, the worst of the Acolytes. So he's going to put a bubble on me. And he's going to try to get me to kill myself. There's the bubble. I got to roll out of it. And now I've dropped it. But he will put another bubble on me at some point. I'm probably going to stop talking so I can try to listen for that bubble. don't know that I'm going to make it past this point. I'm going to try to hit this life support here and try to go back to the Thraxes and get them killed, but it's this weapon might not make it past this point. It's not really doing enough damage to these Thraxes. Alright, we got one dead. I have the bubble on me again. I'm going to roll out of it. I'm going to try to get that other Thrax gone. 4%. No, it's going to be the end of the Quartakk here. Alright. We're still going to kill this Thrax, and we're going to kill the Acolyte as well. Let's see. So it's 7 minutes. We're at 191 kills. It's a lot different than the last one, just because we're fighting a lot bigger enemies in this. We're spending a lot of our time fighting the Thraxes and the Acolytes. Alright, I am going to deal with Malice now that I don't have to worry about life support. Because he's going to keep trying to put that bubble on me. I think he just did again. Yep, I just rolled out of it. Put the bubble on me again. I'm going to roll out of it. So it's very easy for the Quartakk to get kind of overwhelmed just because it doesn't really clear enough. Alright. So the Quartakk got us about 7 minutes into Lua Conjunction, and then it failed there. Which I was like on the fence whether it was going to pass the Thrax point, but it did not. It does fairly good against trash, and it actually does like average-ish against Acolytes. It's just Eximus and Thraxes really hurt it. Galvanized Aptitude does help with that instead of Serration, but Serration you're always going to get the effect of, so it's kind of up to you with using those two mods. Like, you know, Aptitude would have done a little bit better on the Thraxes there and a little bit better on the Eximuses, but, you know, would it have done enough to actually get me past that point? That would be questionable. Probably not. Okay, so let's go over the build one more time here. So it's the Kuva Quartakk. Now the Kuva Quartakk has two firing modes. The first mode you don't aim in and you hip fire and it's automatic. And the second mode you do aim in and when you shoot it's a 4-round burst. So we're going to be using the burst mode because it just does more damage with having the aim-in mods on, galvanized scope and bladed rounds. You're going to be doing orange crits instead of yellows and whites. So first mod we're going to be using is galvanized chamber for multi-shot. Second mod is going to be galvanized scope for crit chance. Third mod is going to be prime shred for fire rate and punch through. If you don't have prime shred, you would put on whatever fire rate mod you want. You can either use like the 60% one, you could use a 90% one. They'd all work well. But if you have access to prime shred, that is the best one to use, just because you also get the punch through with it. The burst mode will also have an innate 0.5 punch through, so it has a little bit of punch through, but this will just give you a little bit more. Fourth slot is going to be Serration, and the optional for this slot is going to be Galvanized Aptitude. So either Serration or Galvanized Aptitude. Serration is going to do a little bit more damage all the time, and Galvanized Aptitude will. You'll see.
Is picking up a distress signal.
Wait for words. Stop talking.
No, it's just the corpus peddling their wares again.
With
the emergency frequency.
Galvanized Aptitude, you'll see that it's going to start doing more damage than Serration, especially when enemies take more than 2 shots to kill. So because the enemies are going to have statuses on them first for you to actually see like more damage out of Galvanized Aptitude. You do get the status chance, which is going to let you get more viral procs quicker, so that's nice as well. So usually things that take more than 2 shots to kill, Galvanized Aptitude will be stronger than Serration, and Serration will be stronger against enemies that are like 1 or 2 shot enemies, so kind of like trash. So up to you what you like on those 2 slots, or that 1 slot there, whether you have Aptitude or Serration. That's also probably going to be your Riven slot though also. So when you get a Riven, it will likely go over Serration or Galvanized Aptitude. So next ones are going to be Critical Delay and Vital Sense for crit chance, crit damage mods. Bladed Rounds for crit damage. And then we're going to go with Primed Cryo Rounds to make viral. The other option here is to go with a 60-60 instead of Primed Cryo Rounds. So do not go for the 90. That's I guess like the takeaway for this. Your options are either, if you have Primed Cryo Rounds, put Primed Cryo Rounds on, or put the 60-60 on. They're both going to produce similar damage outputs, because the 60-60 you're going to get a little bit more viral procs, and so you'll be doing more damage because of that. And the Prime Cryo rounds, you're going to do a little bit more damage just because it's going to have more flat damage on it. So they're both kind of competitive with each other there. Just don't use the 90. You don't really get much out of the 90. Progenitor, we're going to be putting a Toxin Progenitor on this. And that's because it's going to turn your cold mod into viral. And viral is the best general element for the general gameplay. Now, Whispers content, the new Whispers content, enemies are immune to, or strong against and immune to, viral. And so in Whispers content, you want to go with Corrosive. And that's why you also go with a Toxin Progenitor, because instead of putting a cold mod here, you just plop a electric instead, and then all of a sudden now with electric plus your corrosive or your toxin, you make corrosive. So you can, by having a Toxin Progenitor, you can just easily switch between viral or corrosive, and just pop them on and off and switch between them for Whispers content or not. In the Exilus slot, there's nothing great in the Exilus slot for this weapon. I'm going to go with Agile Aim just to let me move a little bit quicker when I'm aiming, but you can pick whatever you want for utility here. And then for the Arcane, we're going to go with Primary Deadhead for a large 360% flat damage increase, a little bit more headshot multiplier, and a little bit less weapon recoil. So, and then just to go over the hipfire build for people that don't want to do the aim down sight one. Now the hipfire build is going to be a lot weaker, I feel, but you would take off the 2 aiming mods basically, so Galvanized Scope and Bladed Rounds, and you're going to put in Aptitude, and you're going to put in the multi-shot mod, which is, I think, Vigilante Armaments it's called. Yep. And that would be the hipfire build. Now this is much weaker, I feel. You're going to be doing yellow crits with this instead of orange. And yeah, it's just much weaker. I prefer the burst build, but I wanted to give that option as well. Put my Bladed Rounds back on. Yeah, and this is the build for the Kuva Quartakk. It's a pretty average weapon. It did a little bit like above average in the Kuva survival testing, but it did like kind of like well below average in the Lua survival testing. So probably like average overall, maybe a little bit below average. So yeah, that's the Kuva Quartakk. Hope you liked the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it.